Thanks, Tim. Here we go.
Great, thank you very much. Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to see you. I've been up since 4:30, and I'm feeling a bit tired. Who was up at 1 o'clock? Why are we up at 1 o'clock? Did it take that long to get from London? Were you walking? That's quite a long time. Fair play. Well done. Yeah, good. And I feel even more tired because last night, as a good dad, I went to watch my daughters in their annual dancing show. And I don't really enjoy that kind of thing. But I must admit, the highlight for me, and this kind of tells you some of the caliber of, it's great to bring some of my team with me today. They're kind of hiding over there. But it says something about the caliber of my team, that some of them were there supporting us last night and coming to cheer the kids on. And it was in this big theatre. And then one of the little acts that came on was all these little girls, and one of them fell over and ended up being dragged on her knees across the whole stage. And my team next to me just laughed the whole time. And I was thinking, no, you don't do that. There's lots of mum and dads around here. You might die. Don't laugh out loud. So anyway, that's where I was last night, watching my daughters do their dancing thing. And I don't really get dancing. I don't know why. I whispered over to my wife, Emily, and said, I don't really get this. Why are they doing it? And she said, it's just a girl thing, is what she said. But if you're a boy and you like dancing, just ignore that completely. But, I reckon it's one of my kind of strengths and weaknesses, that I only tend to really engage with things that I think I'd be really good at doing. And I think that perhaps that's what the problem is when it comes to dancing, because I'm sitting there in this big theatre, looking at all these people dancing, thinking, I could never actually do that. Or if I did, it'd be quite funny, so maybe I should. But I guess it's, for some reason, that's how I tend to view life. So I thought I was really, really good at golf. I'd been to the States, played a bit of golf, came back thinking I was brilliant at golf, said to my brother, hey brother, don't really say that, but let's pretend, hey brother, let's play golf. And he completely thrashed me. And he'd never played golf in his life before. I've never played golf since. It's the same with Risk. Who likes playing Risk? Yeah, a bit of change in the tone of yeah. I used to like Risk until on holiday, my mum decided to play for the first time and completely beat me. That was about 12 years ago. I've never played Risk since. I thought I was really good at rock climbing until I fell off the cliff and had to be airlifted to hospital. But I didn't have any ropes or a helmet, which is a bit of a fault, really. I thought I was one of those amazing free climbers. I thought I was pretty amazing at football. So the last time I played football, Joel's here and Jay's there, and Jay scored past me, and Jay's 3'7", and Joel was just like running around like an athlete, and he's practically disabled because he's got a heart condition, and they beat me. So haven't really played football since either. So I reckon it's my parents' fault, because the first scripture they ever got us to memorize as kids was Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who give me strength. So basically, whenever I see anything, I think I can do it, and I fail miserably. But sometimes I do succeed as well. I thought I'd married an amazing woman until one day she accidentally put the nappies in the tumble dryer instead of the washing machine, and our house smelt like baked baby poo for a long time. Actually, I have married an amazing wife, and it's a shame she's not here with me today. She laughs at me quite a lot because I think I'm this like small town celebrity because I was the mayor and I wore a big necklace. But anyway, she puts up with me, which is really, really good of her. Anyway, thanks for coming all the way from London and wherever else you've come from. I think it's a real privilege just to come and share with you. And I'm really chuffed that you're here. And I just want to thank you for being here and deciding to invest some of your time, I guess, in your leadership and in your walk with God. Wales needs people like you who are stepping up to bring great change in our country. I was really challenged recently by the story of this guy in the book of Job called Elihu. I think that's how we're going to say it today, everyone. Elihu. And in chapter 32 of Job, he says this amazing thing. Let me just read it to you. It says this in Job 32. It says, I thought age should speak, advanced years should teach wisdom. But it's the Spirit in a man, the breath of the Almighty, that gives him understanding. It's not only the old who are wise, not only the aged who understand what is right. Amazing words of wisdom that this chap called Elihu comes out with. It's interesting, isn't it, how he thought that wisdom and being able to lead and step up and make a difference actually comes with age, and he's completely wrong. But what really kind of frustrates me about Elihu is it took him until chapter 32 to speak up and to speak out. I'm sure Elihu was in chapter 1 there, just kind of biding his time. By chapter 2, I can't really remember the story of Job that well, but I'm sure by chapter 2, things weren't going that well. And just perhaps he should have said something. You see, Elihu's quite an interesting character in that he's the youngest out of the group of friends, or the so-called friends of Job. Perhaps by chapter 10, he felt a bit of an inkling to perhaps speak up and input into the situation. And I'm kind of dead frustrated that it took him to chapter 32 to realize he had something to say and that he could make a difference in the situation that Job found himself in. And I guess my prayer for this nation, my prayer for you, in the story of Wales, in the story of the UK, and what God wants to do here, is that you don't take to chapter 32 to say something. I reckon you should be stepping up in chapter 1. Because even Elihu came to the realization by chapter 32 that, do you know what, I should have spoken a long time ago. I don't have to reach a certain age or appear to be wise. He should have stepped up, I reckon, in chapter 1. And in the story of our nation, if there was a book called Wales, I don't know what chapter we're on, but don't wait towards the end of this story to step up and say something and do something. That's kind of my prayer for you guys and for us today. And I was quite intrigued that I got asked to come along to speak here, because I guess I couldn't quite tell in what context I'd been asked to speak. Thought, am I being asked to speak as the established leader, or am I being asked to speak as the young leader? And I had to think quite hard about this. And I talked to some of my team about it. And I'm approaching this session anyway as the established leader. And I find that quite funny because, I'm still in my 30s, just about. I try and get into our 18 to 30s stuff every time it's on, and they never let me go, which I think is really, really nasty of them. I think I've got something to say in 18 to 30s. But anyway, I reckon I must be one of the established leaders. Certainly I'm in my church I'm in. Though saying that, I've been at this church for 18 months, and I inherited an eldership team who are a lot older than me, who were the established leaders. So perhaps for all of us, we find ourselves moving between different spheres in this whole thing. Sometimes I'll be in situations where I feel like I'm completely fresh and I haven't got a clue what's going on. And I know I've got something to say, but I don't quite know how to engage with the leaders in place. Other times I feel like, well, I am the established leader here, so I need to get on with it, grow up a bit, behave myself, and lead. So this session anyway, I'm kind of coming from the point of view that perhaps I'm the established leader in all this. So I lead a church in Chester at the moment, and I have a leadership role in a church in Towyn called North Coast Church. And it's a great, exciting challenge. And I love what leaders like you bring to church. But I know that you'll only flourish when you learn how to really engage with those leaders that are over you. That's been the story perhaps of my life a little bit. So you've all heard of this guy called Samuel. You read of his story, 1 Samuel, funny enough. Chapter 3, the opening verse says, and Samuel ministered before the Lord under Eli. So kind of in Samuel's life, he only flourished when he knew how to work underneath an established leader. And even though we like to think, maybe I'm back in the non-established leader now, maybe we like to think, it's their fault up there. If only they would let me do this, and if only they were like that, and how on earth am I meant to work with that person? And God, why am I in this church? Why am I working for that person? Actually, you're only going to flourish when you learn how to really engage well with the leaders that God has already placed over you. So we see that in the story of Samuel. He ministered before the Lord under Eli. Now you're thinking, oh, Tim, it's easy for you to say that. You're the established leader. Well, I guess it is. Well, but it's not as well, because I've always got to work with others who are over me. In fact, I make it a thing of mine. I'm always trying to seek out people that I can serve under and learn from. So on the way down here, I was doing a bit of prep. Not that I'm last minute or anything, but I was doing a bit of prep on the way down this morning. And the session that I'd planned for the second session, I just felt I should do now. So that's what's going to happen. So let's just see where this goes. Because I spent most of the journey prepping for the first session, which is now the second session. And the second session is now the first session. If you follow that, well done. So this first session, I just want to look a little bit, perhaps, how we engage well with leaders that God has placed over us. And there's all sorts of great examples in the Old Testament. So my kind of theme here is a new kind of leader. I think and it's going to be the theme for my two talks. I think we're in a position in society, in time, that requires a new kind of leadership. The opposite of that, I guess, would be an old kind of leader, but I'm a little bit cautious of that because it sounds like it's about an age thing, and it's not necessarily about age. So we're going to stick with a new kind of leader for the time being. And God does this, you know. You'll see examples throughout Scripture where a change is needed, and the only people that bring change are leaders. So he has to appoint a new kind of leader to bring change. So we see that in the story of Samuel. The guy above him, Eli, basically made a hash of things. And God had to say to Eli, look, I'm going to have to raise up a new leader who's faithful to me. So it's kind of a normal thing for God to do. And I kind of sense that in our generation, there's a bit of a shift going on that requires a new kind of leader to step up before chapter 32 and speak into our nation and show strong leadership. So here we go, second session as the first session. And I just like that picture, which is why I got it, nicked it off the internet somewhere. I felt that was me looking up to, I was going to say my dad, but that might be a bit weird. So what kind of leaders do we have to work under as younger leaders? And how do we relate to them? So the first kind of leader I thought about was Moses. Who's heard of Moses before? Yeah, good. I was with the inspector of the police in our area yesterday. His name's Jeff Moses. What a cool name. I was trying to think that through as his parents, you know, they knew his surname was going to be Moses. And they thought, Jeff. Jeff Moses, you're the man. And he's now a chief inspector. And that's nothing to do with what I'm talking about. So here we have Moses. Now try and picture, for those of you, I think most of you kind of heard of this guy and might have an impression of what he's like. You know the story of Moses, how he was called. But he had this one big vision in his mind. It was always about the next big thing. And it was Canaan. It was the promised land. So I reckon that whenever you met with Moses, the conversation would probably go along something like this. You'd say, did you watch the football, Moses? He'd say, yes. But have you seen the promised land? And he'd be straight onto it again. And don't you love meeting people who have got vision for the future, a God-given vision? There's this old guy in our church who I love chatting to. And whenever I talk to him about the things he's doing, I say, why are you doing this? He goes, it's for the kingdom. I think, oh yes, it's for the kingdom. And he's got this big vision of working for the kingdom in whatever he does. And you might be serving under a visionary leader. And that's a good thing, actually. I think these are good people to serve. Of course, they've got their faults. So we all know that the person who served with Moses, the new kind of leader that had to come up, was Joshua. Now, so here we see that actually Even when we had this big visionary leader like Moses, there was still a need for a new kind of leader to step up and take the people the next step. And for me, the story of Moses and Joshua in terms of a relationship between a younger leader and an established leader, for me, it's really, really positive. So how did Joshua serve Moses? Well, I put the word assist there, because we read quite specifically in Exodus 24 that Joshua was Moses' assistant. So if you're serving under a visionary leader and you're not too sure quite how to engage, why don't you just start by assisting that leader in what they're doing? Find out what that vision is. Find out with all your heart what they're doing to try and make that vision happen, and then you do the same. You assist them to make it happen. Perhaps we serve under leaders that have a bit of a mix of these things that I'm going to go through. I think that's quite normal, actually. And towards the end of this session, I'm going to ask one of my team to come up and talk a little bit about the good and bad things about working for me. And we'll see where I fit in, and we'll take a bit of a risk there. And okay, so there we go. Visionary leaders, they're good to work with. Okay, what about those of you that are working under cautious leaders? And you can perhaps define some of these people I'm putting on the screen in a slightly different way. That's fine. Why don't you do that? Because I talked to Emily about some of these people. So Barak, I guess he was a kind of king. And they were being attacked. And really, he needed to go to war. But he was quite fearful. So perhaps he's a fearful leader, actually. Maybe I'm just being kind by calling him cautious. But it's something I've found, actually, in working with established leaders. Often they can be really, really quite cautious. Because I guess their experience of life just means that, well, they've got experience. They've been through some stuff. They view everything in the future, just like you do, actually, by what they've experienced in the past. Just that they've had more past to have to view things through. So I get it. But I also know that we're in a day where I feel like we should throw caution to the wind, and we should just go for it. We should be trying to attempt amazing things for God, stepping out in faith like we've never done before. We need to do the opposite of caution, I think, and represent the opposite of fear, which is faith. And I think you guys really represent it today. Now, you could perhaps have a bit of an argument with me about how I've brought these two next to each other. So there's this amazing leader called Deborah. Now, you could actually argue that she was the established leader, but I'll let you do your homework on that one. We basically read in Judges 4, verse 9, that Barak, who should have gone to war with an army of 10,000, said, I'm not going unless you come with me. And Deborah agreed to do that. So what's the best thing you can do if the leader that you're serving under is often quite fearful of the future and quite cautious about things? Will you come right alongside and you make sure you're there walking through everything that they're cautious about and fearful about? That's what you need to do. And God will honor you in that situation, because in this story here, there was a great victory. So if you find yourself a little bit frustrated at perhaps the caution of leaders above you, that's quite normal. It's happened to other people before. Well, you should come alongside. Okay, now this next one is perhaps, I would say, one of the hardest to have to work under. And it's the insecure leader. And I've used the example here of King Saul. I was going to say psychopathic leader, but Emily said I shouldn't say that. So I didn't say that. I went with insecure. Not that psychopaths are insecure. Anyway, let's not go down that little route. Pull myself back here, Tim. Well done. So insecure leaders are, I would say, the hardest to work for. And for some reason, lots of pastors seem to be quite insecure. I don't know why that is. Is it fair to say that? I think I'm being harsh. Tim. But who knows the story of Saul? He became king. He was really tormented by evil spirits. That's when David comes on the scene. So I brought David in as the new kind of leader, and I used the word appease because I'm trying to find things that start with A, and I couldn't think of anything else. But in that situation, I was just going to say he played the harp. Did he? I can't remember. Was it a harp? He certainly played music. And he brought peace into the situation. And throughout the rest of the story of Saul, Saul would get really upset and threatened by just the songs that people would sing about David. Saul is slaying his thousands, David is 10,000s, and he would just go on off on one because of his inbuilt insecurities. But David's amazing, isn't he? Just how he never sought to usurp Saul, never sought to harm him, always sought to bring peace into the situation. And perhaps the temptation is that when we serve under insecure leaders, and do you know what? We're all slightly insecure. We've all got insecurities inside of us. So maybe we should just be honest to start with. But the temptation is, I think, is to run away from the others who are insecure. So perhaps their insecurity makes us want to run away or put up guards. But David's just amazing that somehow he managed to bring peace. I love this word peace. It's from, the Hebrew word shalom, which literally means the way things ought to be. The way things ought to be. So we read in the Old Testament, we read that Jesus is the Prince of the way things ought to be. Blessed are those who make things the way they ought to be. And actually, I think when we serve under people who seem really insecure, perhaps we just need to make sure we're always seeking peace, always seeking the way things ought to be. It's quite hard, actually. I reckon this is the hardest one to serve under. We have a little bit of Q&A afterwards, and maybe you could ask me questions about it, and I'll just have no answers, so that'd be a waste of time. I've got 5 of these characters, one number 4 here. Eli. So I've just mentioned Eli, haven't I? Eli was the priest that Samuel took over from. You read his story in 1 Samuel. Who knows the story of Eli and Samuel? Yeah. Do you reckon undermined is a good way of describing him? What do you think? See, I wasn't sure. He was certainly undermined by the other priests around him, who happened to be his family. I wanted to go with lazy, but again, I had to have a chat with Emily about that. She thought that was a bit too harsh, because at the end of his life, we read that Eli was so big, he just sat in his chair all day. But no, I kind of stepped back a little bit and thought about the undermined leader. Have a little bit of think about that. But the thing is that Samuel was the new kind of leader that God brought in. And I love the way that Samuel was attentive to everything Eli said. It's amazing, isn't it? Here's this leader that everyone else would have laughed at, talked behind his back about because of what his sons were doing in the temple. But Eli, a new kind of leader, had a different kind of attitude and spirit and decided that he would be attentive to everything that he said. And God used that quality to eventually help Samuel become attentive to God and be able to speak the word of God. Perhaps we always fall into the trap of thinking that everyone else, we know that we're not perfect, but we often think everyone else should be, and especially our leaders. And as soon as we see a little bit of a fault in them, which you will see, perhaps in our heads, that undermines them to us. Maybe we need to get past that and realize that we've all got our failings. We all think that we can play golf when we can't. And actually, let's be attentive to what God is saying through our leaders, because God does put leaders in place. It is his church after all. And maybe we should be a little bit more attentive rather than just speaking out what we think or just ignoring completely. Okay, here we go. My final person here is Fiery Elijah. Fiery, I like that term. What else could we say to describe Elijah, do you reckon? Unpredictable? Was he a bit unpredictable? What else kind of comes up in your mind when you think of Elijah? Beard? Yeah, good, well done. Beard, like mine. He was definitely a fiery character. Well, he certainly called fire down from heaven, which perhaps suggests that was what he liked doing. Okay, so Elisha. Well done with the A's, Tim. Brilliant. 1 Kings 19:21. It actually says that Elisha attended to Elijah. So if we had to look at these, I think there's some positive ones and some negative ones. I think I'm sort of seeing this last one in a kind of positive light, I think. Maybe I'm just preempting what Kerry might say. I'm just trying to smooth the waters because something I might be a bit unpredictable sometimes. So it's the best kind of leader, I reckon. But I like the way that Elisha attended to him. So whereas Joshua assisted with what Moses was doing, this is a bit more personal. Elisha attended to Elijah, made sure that, I guess, he was doing well and perhaps got to know him a bit more and found out exactly, what he likes for breakfast or what he liked getting for his birthday. Just dropping a few hints here. Things like that attend to that leader. So I'd like to have a little think about the leaders that you serve under. And could you put them into any of these brackets that I've talked about here? Have a little think. Think of your pastor or your elders. Where do they fit? Or are they a mixture of these things? But I'm also fascinated by the way that the new kind of leader not only ended up flourishing, but became so much because of them coming underneath another leader. So, for example, the fact that Samuel and his attentiveness to Eli became the one who brought the word of God to the nation. Actually appointed kings because of his attentiveness originally to what Eli was saying. Or we think of Elisha attending to the fiery prophet. It was Elisha that was able to, that amazing story when everyone was under attack, was able to pray, and the servant's eyes were open and saw the hills like full of warriors. And they had great stories. They flourished because they knew how to relate and engage with the leaders that were over them. David, of course, is pretty amazing anyway. So we're going to keep that on the screen. And I've asked Kerry to come up and perhaps have a little chat about some of this. So I think Kerry's brilliant. Got to say lots of the things now. Well, I said everyone else. No. So when I took on the church in Chester, just over 18 months ago, Kerry was the first person, actually the only person perhaps, no, first person I specifically asked to come along and help. Because I think Kerry really carries something that I know the church there needed. So I've got so much respect for Kerry. And so Kerry will come and tell you a bit about herself. And then we're going to have a little chat about perhaps what Kerry looks for in an established leader, I think. We'll see. And a little bit of a chat about what really annoys you about me. And I just want to say that I've got a great team. I feel like I'm just like laying on thick here. Got a great team. I could put them in charge of the church. I really could. And I could walk away, and I know the church would do really, really well. I think they're really inspiring. But anyway, let's give Kerry a big round of applause. She comes up.
Hello, everyone.
Do you want that?
Yes, please.
Oh, there's another little thing there.
I feel like that was a little bit of a test of the attentive thing. So I just wanted to let you know that Tim has porridge for breakfast and tea with no sugar. And for his birthday, he would like climbing stuff and Union Jacks, but not socks, as clearly he doesn't wear them. So.
Well done.
Thank you.
Do I actually talk about my breakfast that much?
I just know. It's my job to know.
Porridge. Who has porridge for breakfast? Oh, well done, everyone. You kind of leader. That's how it starts with porridge. It's because my granddad, used to have porridge every day. And my granddad was pretty amazing. But he'd have salt in his porridge. Oh. Every day, he'd have salty porridge. Anyway, sorry, Kerry. Do you think I should sit down, or stay here?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe you should just go.
Should I just sit there? All right. Okay, cool.
So I'm Kerry. I'll just tell you a bit about what I do at church. I'm the Sunday team leader, so I head up Sundays. So I'm kind of in charge of what happens on a Sunday and how the atmosphere is before, during, and after the service. And I often say that what I do on a Sunday is that I do what I do so that Tim can do what he does well. So he doesn't have to worry about all of that stuff. And I would say that you are a visionary rather than a fiery leader. So I'll just say that now because a lot of my stuff's based on it. And I kind of do a lot of work joining the dots from what Tim sees in the future, and I kind of join those dots from where we are now. I'm also one of the young adults pastors with my lovely fiancé Joel down there. And we are the ones who stopped him from coming to the 18 to 30s things. I have to tell him from the stage every Sunday, no. And I also am responsible for design of stuff in church, so how we as Festival Church look and present ourselves, whether that's printed, online, or whatever. When Tim asked me to tell you about what it's like working with an older leader, I must have looked really blank and just kind of said, okay. And he was like, no, it's me. I'm the older leader. I was like, oh, okay then, fine. And I think it is important to point out that when I talk about examples of an older leader, that Tim probably isn't your average older established leader. So just bear that in mind. There are different leaders who are some of my examples come from. So what do I look for in an established leader? I've got 3 points. My first one is an established leader where I will thrive, where a younger leader will thrive, communicates effectively. I flourish as a leader when Tim communicates with me, when I know what I'm supposed to be doing or what the vision is. I have something to aim for, then I flourish. But I also think it works both ways, is that so I've previously worked with leaders who do plenty of communication and instructing towards me, but who I've not been able to communicate back with. And I find that in order for me to be the best leader I can be, I need to be able to ask questions and get answers. And Tim is really good at this. He doesn't mind me questioning. And we regularly have conversations rather than instructional meetings. So that's my first one, is communication. The second one is, for me to flourish as a younger leader, I need a more established leader who trusts me. I need my leader to trust me when they ask me to do something, because I think without that, there's no ownership in my role, and I'm just following instructions rather than taking ownership of it. And there's been many times when Tim's given me a job to do where I feel so out of my depth, but he's trusted me with it, and that's where I've grown, because it's become mine. Again, this works both ways, is that I need to be able to trust my leaders as well. I need to be able to trust their decisions, and I need to trust their vision, even if sometimes that vision is still developing and not completely clear. Because Tim is my leader, I trust him, that he knows what he's doing. And I also need to be able to trust my leaders with me, with myself. I need to trust that my leaders will respect me and be sensitive to my needs, and I won't be overworked or taken advantage of. So number 2 is trust. And the third one is that a younger leader will flourish when there is a personal relationship. I've known Tim for quite some time now. I used to nanny for his kids. And I think that's part of the reason why we work well together, is because we know each other quite well. So I thrive when working with an older leader, when we have a relationship, but not a weird one. I think it's important for us to remember that we're church, we're not employees and bosses, we're family. And just like we have relationships with siblings and aunties and parents and cousins, we should have a relationship with each other. I think that makes it so much easier to work together, and as it says in Ephesians, to bear with one another's faults, which we do, don't we? So yeah, communication, trust, and relationship, I think, are my 3 key things where I flourish as a younger leader when I have those things in an older leader. So Tim's also asked me to tell you what annoys me about him, which, you know, is quite good. My first one is quite some years ago, Tim announcing to the whole church when a new guy came in that I was single from the stage. Not cool. I'm not single anymore, sorry everyone. But that was just such a horrible experience, and he knows not to do that now. The second thing is that I am a massive organizer. I plan ahead and I organize in advance. And something that really annoys me about Tim is that I can have an event or a design planned and ready to go, and then just as I'm about to say, go on it, Tim will be like, no, we need to change it. And the first time that happened, I was so annoyed. But I've learned to be a little bit more flexible now. So that's somewhere where I've learned as well. But I've also learned to make Tim-proof plans so that if he does change them, they can be easily changed. I've also learned that because Tim is a visionary, he often talks about his ideas. That's how he processes them. He talks out loud about them, which is great because I love to be communicated to. But I've now learned that unless he said something more than 3 times, just don't bother acting on it because it might not even happen. So I think it's been a learning curve for me as well. And because we do communicate really well, I can just tell him, that's really annoying. Can you do something about it? So yeah, and I think it's only fair that because I've told you what annoys me about him, that I tell you his good points as well. So he's a really good communicator, both on stage and off stage. He genuinely cares about all of his leaders, and I'm sure that all of my little row there will say that as well. And he makes sure that our well-being is good, spiritually, mentally, and health-wise. He actually cares about us. He's also amazing at discerning other people's gifts and putting them in positions where they can grow and develop. And that's exactly what happened with me in our old church. He asked me to head up Sundays, and I'd never done anything like that before. But because Tim asked me, I said yes. And actually, that's where I'm called to be. And also, yeah, he's a visionary, although the outworking of this can sometimes be annoying. I have every confidence that Tim does hear from God, and that makes him really easy to get behind and follow and support because I know that the vision I'm following has been given by God to Tim. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Let's give Kerry a round of applause. Brilliant. Let's stay here for a while. Okay, great. Thanks, Kerry. So let's go back to those annoying bits. Oh, yeah, you've already got them there. Well done. So, what annoys... was it you about me? How do I say that?
Why you're annoying.
Why I'm annoying. I wonder whether I should try and change these things. Because actually, maybe I've just become a bit lazy because I've got to know Kerry quite well, and other members of my team, I just think, they can just put up with this. So maybe I should try better, actually. So no, I won't announce... That's quite funny. I think it's because I'm a pastor's kid, right? And my dad preaching, I just got so used to him saying stuff about me that it comes quite naturally to me to pick on other people all the time because I thought, well, I've had to put up with it, so should you. And I must admit, I think I used to be a bit tight on Kerry that whenever not that she was desperate or looking for
That's what it made me look like. I think it was a point in my life where I was very aware about being single as well.
Oh yeah, sorry. I think that did happen once, but in terms of a single guy coming in and me announcing that Kerry was single, that's a really bad thing to do. But I guess I've had to be really careful with how I talk about my family. I try a lot harder with that. But the thing is, some people don't get it, I suppose. So Emily, I wish you could have met Emily. Me and Emily have a real laugh about stuff, and we're quite real about things. So often I'll take the mick out of her, I guess, from up here. But it's just part of we have a laugh about so much stuff. And if she was out here talking, she'd be doing the same about me. But I know that doesn't always come across that well if you're perhaps new. Or you just think I'm a really nasty guy for telling a story about the nappies. And she's got plenty of stories about me. So yeah.
But I think in that situation as well, like it was a long time ago, I hadn't known you for very long, but I was still able to approach you and say, please never do that again. and you respected me. Yeah, and you didn't.
All right,
so
okay, that's good.
fine.
Okay. Right, so what else went on here? So yeah, this whole one about planning and organising. So yeah, Kerry's really organised, which is brilliant, and I really appreciate that. So on this one, I feel it's kind of I think perhaps one of the reasons why I think we work so well together, because I know I'm not. I don't know if I ever, well, on one hand, I am quite organised. I got here, didn't I? So I'm dressed. What more do you want? But I guess it's just about perhaps the details of stuff and actually making stuff happen. I know that I can just say to Kerry, right, we're doing this that day, just crack on. So what was the bit in there that annoys you? I can't see anything annoying about that one. What's going on?
Like I said, I've learned now.
So what was it?
Processing your ideas.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, that is right, and I've probably got to get better at that. I definitely do talk about stuff a lot. And it was only, I think it's fairly recently you said that you're not going to listen to me now, and so I've said it at least 3 times, which is probably a good idea, actually, because I do process stuff. I like to bounce ideas off people, so I'll talk to you as if we're about to do something, you know. I think it might be a family thing, so I was sitting with my brother on the sofa watching football on Wednesday, and before the match, we're like, shall we book tickets to Paris? Like, yeah. So in that moment, we decided we're going to book tickets to Paris, and we'd say it again, shall we? Oh, yeah. Let's book tickets to Paris to watch the final. But we never quite got to the 3rd time, and we never actually did book tickets to Paris. So maybe it's just perhaps our family, we're just a bit like that. But I can see how that'd be really annoying, so I guess I could, no. But then I do need to talk about stuff, so I
think you're getting better at telling people when it's an idea and when it's an actual happening thing, which is